this country can be led into a Great Depression that will have an enormously negative impact, obviously. The Republican leadership in the Senate is awful. I have some hope for the Republican leadership in the House, but it's going to be the grassroots. It's going to be folks that watch this network, folks that watch Fox, folks that listen to talk radio and so forth. You're the ones who are going to save this country, assuming we can save it at the grassroots level. We had the Tea Party movement, we had the Reagan Revolution, you had the Trump movement, and now we have this movement. And I call this the anti-Marxism movement. And that's what's going on from our classrooms to the rest of the country. So now that we know that we're in a recession, and the statistics are going to bear that out, now we're supposed to change the language. We can't define what a woman is. You can't say he, you can't say she. Everybody can use the same bathroom. And now we're going to change what it means to have a recession. You know, just because the left believes something doesn't mean it has to become reality. Their beliefs are not reality. Isn't that great? You have a belief, I have a belief. So then it becomes reality. I believe that your genitals determine not what's between your legs, but between your ears. Oh, okay. No, it's not okay. It's a lie. Oh, I believe that the baby that's aborted 1 week before birth is a choice. No, it's not a choice. The science says it's a baby. And you could go on. You got the head of DHS saying, the border is secure, he says. No, the border's not secure. There's a report out today, 500,000 illegal alien gotaways. Just this year. We're going to have 9 million by the end of Biden's administration, should he serve out all 4 years. It doesn't make it true. They are liars. They are liars. And you have to be a liar to be on the left. Fears of a looming recession in the United States. You and I know what a recession is. You're living it. Sky News Australia, because they are really good. Go.
The White House is tempering fears of a looming recession in the US. Economists have raised concerns about the world's largest economy, while 68% of Americans believe the president is doing a poor job of managing it.
There's good news for drivers as gas prices plunge at least 16 cents since last week. The national average hovering at $4.35 a gallon.
I ain't got a nickel or dime. I ain't got to stop at the light and cut my car off.
Despite pump price improvements, record inflation is still pushing Americans' wallets closer to empty, which has the White House on defense.
We're not going to be in a recession, in my view.
The administration trying to curb recession fears as they wait for a handful of key reports coming out this week, including consumer confidence numbers and an expected Fed rate hike of another 0.75%. The new data expected to give us a glimpse into our economic standing. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says if the numbers indicate second quarter negative growth, that doesn't signal a recession.
I would say that we're seeing...
All right, stop a second. Why do we care what she says? She's such a moron. She's gotten everything wrong. She's a political hack. There's no inflation. It's transitory. Oh, it won't last long. And now there's no such thing as a recession. What is it? You have to have an IQ of -17 to work for this administration? I mean, this woman is a disaster. Go ahead.
A slowdown. We're likely to see some slowing of job creation. But I don't think that that's a recession.
Many Americans, though, think the country's economy is going in the wrong direction. A new Fox News poll says 68% of voters do not approve of the White House's handling of the economy.
9 out of 10 of our fellow citizens think the country's on the wrong track. They think that because it is.
Mm-hmm. But don't worry, we're not in a recession. What are we in? Well, whatever we're in, it's not a recession. Don't worry, it's inflation. Well, what is it? It's not inflation. Don't worry. It's not a recession. It's not inflation. The border's secure. Everything's going great. Well, that's BS. Biden White House redefines recession. Even CNN, the constipated news network, even CNN is awakened to this. Go.
So there is fears that there's going to be a recession, that next week the Commerce Department is set to release a highly anticipated economic report. And analysts project that it could show the second quarter GDP numbers and decline. So that would be 2 in a row. And technically, a way to define a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP numbers. If that happens next week, if those numbers come out and reflect that, will the White House view this country as being in a recession? And if if not, what then would the White House, what would the definition be for the White House of a recession?
So these are great questions. What will the definition be? Well, in fact, that question is answered, but it's very obscure. So the National Bureau of Economic Research has a group called the Business Cycle Dating Committee. I know that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
I'm sorry on a Saturday night to be taking people through that. But they're the group that decide whether we're in a recession or not. And they do so in hindsight because the data come in with a bit of a lag.
So now we determine whether we're in a recession by looking in hindsight. And you said, I hate to do this on a Saturday night. And you see they have the morning background on there because it's very, very sunny there on a Saturday night. But all that said, no, you don't understand. It's not 2 negative quarters in a row. It's the ABC committee, part of the division of widgets, made up of 17 independent transitioning people. And they determine when we're in a recession. Oh, go ahead.
Now, to help people understand about this, we wrote a blog we posted on the Council of Economic Advisors website late last week that people can find, where we talked about the fact that in the first 2 quarters of the year, the first half of the year, where we have data, if you look at the variables that the Business Cycle Dating Committee uses, they tend to look pretty good. Consumer spending, as I mentioned.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're all confused. We have this committee. Who the hell ever heard of this committee before? All of a sudden, it's not 2 negative periods of non-growth in a row. It is this group that makes the decision whether we're in a recession or not. Let me ask you a question. Do you think we're in a recession or not? They keep talking about post-virus, that we were in really a horrific situation and they pulled us out. We were in a horrific situation because of the virus, because of the blue state governors, because of the blue states shutting down those economies. The red states are way ahead of the blue states. So now the Democrats come back and they say, look at all the jobs we created. Well, it turns out they didn't create that many jobs. People take jobs because they need jobs. It's not because Biden did something. What exactly did Biden do to create jobs? I'd love to know. What did he do exactly? Exactly nothing. Nothing. So jobs spontaneously were created, but they're not being created that quickly. We have the highest level of people as a percentage of the workforce who aren't working in modern history. We have the highest inflation rate since 1981. And they keep looking at it like it's wonderful. It's like energy. They destroyed our energy industry. They destroyed it. How the hell are they going to fix it? They're not going to fix it. They're now actually starting to speak truthfully and tell you we are transitioning to something else. Okay, can we see what that is? No. Well, what is it? It's solar power and wind. Okay, got it. Solar power and wind, which is a tiny, tiny percentage of everything. So how are you going to do this? Well, we're going to just make it very, very painful. I asked you, how are you going to do it? What industries? What technologies? What processes? Where's this being done? Where's this going to be done? Why would we leave it to Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer? Between the 3 of them, they've exactly 0 private sector experience, let alone any energy experience. Maybe we'll leave it to AOC. Their belief system and their ideology are not substitutes for reality. And this is what I keep saying. And so they're never going to be able to fix the fossil fuel situation because they're blowing it up. They're never going to be able to fix the economy because they're blowing it up. Climate change is about degrowth. The Green New Deal is about degrowth. It's about impoverishment. It's about shrinking the economy. It's about containing prosperity. Do you remember when Obama used to come out and say, we're only 3% of the world's population, but we use 25% of the world's resources? Well, of course we do. We make stuff. We process stuff. We supply stuff to the entire world. That's why we're 25% of the resources. Where else are they going to use 25% of the resources to good effect? Nowhere else. It's this war on capitalism. That's what's taking place here. That's why the economy is faltering, because these are cultural Marxists pushing a socialist economic agenda. Go.
I quoted something from a bank call that was just from last week, so that's pretty up to date. Consumer spending remains solid, in part because both families and businesses have pretty solid...
Consumer spending remains solid? What does that mean? People are feeding themselves? People are having to spend money on the usual stuff. I mean, if consumer spending was dropping 20, 30%, we'd have starvation in the streets. And let me remind you, this is more than an attack on the economy. It's even more than an attack on our culture. It's an attack on the individual. Now, what do I mean by that? Capitalism, freedom, small r republicanism, constitutionalism, what are they about? They're about creating a civil society where the individual is preeminent. The individual is respected, unalienable rights, a circle of liberty around each individual that is not supposed to be penetrated, where you're not supposed to be molested by the government. Every step they're taking is contrary to that. Every single step they're taking. Notice they never talk about liberty, they never talk about competition, they never talk about free choice except when it comes to killing babies. You notice that? Because they don't believe it.
Want to see more? Sign up for Levin TV.